Hello everybody and welcome back to The Insider. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Murray Foxcroft. Murray is actually somebody that I've known a long time. So I originally started working with Murray as a client, I think probably about 15 years ago. Then Murray became a candidate and now Murray has become a client again. So full circle, I think that's the only time it's happened in my career. So guy I know very well, top man, welcome to the show, Murray.
Thanks, and good to see you again. Yeah, as you say, we've crossed paths many times, and you've been invaluable in A, helping me to sort my career out and put it in the right direction, and B, find the right people to help me grow successful teams. So thank you.
Thank you. To be honest with you, yeah, while we're on the kind of patting each other on the back, I think that another thing with you, Murray, is that you're somebody who I always go to when I have questions. And Murray's one of these guys who's always eager to help, but he's really good at explaining it to dummies like myself in simplistic terms on a whiteboard and explaining diagrams. So it's you've been invaluable to me over the years. Could you start off by maybe just giving everybody a bit of an overview and a bit of an introduction to yourself, where your kind of expertise are and who you're working with?
Yeah, so I'll give it a super brief history and then concentrate a little bit on more recent activities. From my accent, you can hear I'm a bit of a hybrid. Sort of 30 odd years in South Africa and 15 odd in the UK. Primarily working in London markets and have been involved in law firms, system integrators, and worked for product vendors as well. So a huge array of experience. And having recently joined, well, not really recently, it's about 18 months ago, joined an organization called ProArch. I've been appointed as their CTO. And it's a very interesting organization. We've got two large clients, one in the US, one in the UK, and then we've got a lot of domestic business in India. So we really spread across three continents, and then we do some offshore and some nearshore work with sort of Eastern Europe. So quite a diverse and interesting company. Around 200 people, and in these last few months, to go along with the pandemic and a bit of the crisis, we've been wrapping up an acquisition. So we've bought a security and analytics company on top of that. So it's been really busy for us. But our primary focus at the moment is Microsoft Cloud. We do a little bit of AWS. We do a little bit of Google, but primarily Microsoft called partners, building applications, so software as a service applications for customers, and also on-premise sort of line of business applications. We do websites, we do UI, UX driven design, and then into data and analytics on Microsoft's platform, ranging from data lakes through to data science, databases, analytics, predictive analytics, modeling, churn prediction, that type of work. And then spanning, with this new acquisition of ours, spanning into the security arena. So at the moment, for an organization of our size, about 300 people, globally, we're able to cover end-to-end Azure, from initial customer moving a couple of virtual machines in, lift and shift, migrating the Azure infrastructure, all the way through to building apps and data solutions on top. Through the acquisition, I've become a co-CTO, so I look after apps and data, and we've got another chap that looks after security and infrastructure.
Wow, what a lot to cover there. And I think no wonder you're so hard to pin down. Everybody else who's listened to this, Murray's off on a very well-deserved holiday tomorrow, and he's managed to squeeze me in today. So I can see why when you're talking about everything that you guys are covering. Am I right in saying that the recent acquisitions are an American-based business?
Yeah, it's in upstate New York, Rochester. So I, luckily, just before lockdown happened, I was kind of across in the US, helping to set up, the technical due diligence, work out how we start to combine our offerings. ProArch have traditionally had quite a weak sales team. They've got a very strong sales team. They've got no clue about how to do data and analytics, but really strong security. So whilst it's a fantastic fit from an organizational perspective, there's very little overlap, and we really expand our capabilities, trying to get both sides of the fence, finding the strengths to create the synergy has been quite a challenge, and then education across the board.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that the first thing I normally cover is kind of like where we are right now. So you have a lot of moving parts. So you've got clients in the UK, you've got teams based over in India, an acquisition that's going over in America. And as far as I know, you're the only customer that I've spoken to who have gone through an acquisition, and obviously all the kind of planning and understanding through that. So it must have been a hell of a challenge, especially with kind of time zones and not being able to go over to America as much. Where are you guys at the moment in terms of how's this pandemic kind of affected you guys, and how's it changed the way that you're working?
I think there's two key areas, maybe even three key areas that you can break it into. From us, our major customer base sits in management consultancy, energy and utilities, and whilst those organizations have maybe felt some of the impact, it's been nowhere near as severe as travel, automotive, hospitality, those type of hotels, pubs, etc. So we've been slightly protected. I think when the pandemic hit, everyone went into emergency planning and what's the worst case scenario, what's the best case scenario, what is our plan, in case we need to how do we put some money aside so we've got some cash to get through this in case we fall on hard times. So there's this knee-jerk reaction of kind of this immense amount of planning that we went through, and as it unfolded and lockdown happened, our business has stayed fairly static. So a lot of planning, a lot of panic, but no real impact. So I think we've been lucky in that way. So existing business for us has been pretty much flat, and that's probably why you haven't heard much from me lately, Ben, because people are moving, they're kind of staying put, and our business hasn't really scaled up or down. That said, over the last 2 to 4 weeks, things are really starting to ramp up for us. The market's getting busier. We're getting a lot of inquiries, a lot of demos, a lot of interest in our products, and we do a data product. And one of the things we built, you probably don't know about it, Ben, is in record time, in 10 days, we built a COVID app, effectively a tracker for organizations that have got Azure Active Directory.
Wow.
or Google authentication. We split it up into the employees and guests. And as you'd arrive at any pub, the type of app you see now, where it pops up and it says, have you had any of these symptoms? Have you traveled to a restricted area from a geographical perspective? You kind of tap in and select that you're either kind of non-compliant or compliant, and then it comes up with a message saying you're good to go to the premises, or no, stay away. You go contact your health advisor, or get or get the relevant testing done. So we built it in 10 days, actually, for an educational institution in New York. So that's been another little piece on our plate, which has kept us quite busy. We're now selling that primarily into the US market, because I think the boat's kind of sailed in the UK for those type of apps, and getting lots of traction. So that's been interesting for us. It's a good opportunity for us, and we're working with a lot of non-profits and effectively giving it away at cost to some of them, just so that that they can get back to work. Speaking to any educational institution, they're under a huge amount of pressure to try and get their doors open, and they want to keep those doors open by having people come into the premises, get on with their learning, their teaching, students and faculty, but at the same time ensure a level of safety and be compliant with the government legislation.
Yeah, no, amazing. I mean, I think that's where consultancies can have real value is, when you can do something really reactive, so there's an issue, and what kind of, solution can you provide to a client, and to be able to put something together in 10 days must have been pretty hectic. Also glad to hear that things are picking up. I'll definitely stand by my phone, Murray, so we'll look out for that. But I think in general, the market's beginning to turn. So I think what kind of happened to me was we had one client who just carried on hiring. I've said this a couple of times on the pod, but they took advantage of where the market was, where a lot of other companies kind of held off, and they managed to secure some really, really good talent, to be honest with you. They had a process, and pretty stable company to work for, so they did very well. So probably the first 6 weeks I was crazy busy, and then I was really quiet for about 6 weeks after, and then there was a few clients kind of testing the water, and in the kind of couple of recruitment networks that I'm part of, everyone was saying work's picking up, we're getting busier. But then I think but no one was really kind of pulling the trigger. So I was quite glad that I didn't spend too much time on a requirement. The last thing I'd want to do is work, you and I've worked closely together in the past. You'll come to me when you need help, but you're sure that you're going to hire. And I think a lot of the time there's a few customers out there who weren't too sure if we do, if we don't. And so there's a bit of movement in the market, but it seems to come away. The last week and a half, it's moving forward. So the last week and a half, out of nowhere, we've literally, it was funny enough, I went away for the weekend, and it's just sod's law. Before you go away, there's like 10 jobs just jumped in, So we're like, James and I, my business partner, have been crazy busy this week, but it's a sign that things are moving forward. I think you're one of the best people to speak to, actually, about how technology is going to kind of help in a post-COVID world. We're obviously all beginning to get back to some sense of normality. I mean, we're obviously watching the stats every day. I know you're a bit of a stat man yourself, and we've had the conversations about how the government are working with the daily information at the moment. But regardless, stats are and data is going to influence how we move forward. It's determined how we live at the moment. How do you see this kind of evolving over the next maybe 6 months or so?
Well, I think the data has been extremely difficult to work with, and we've made a number of attempts to try and harness some of that COVID data, analyze it, and make some sense of it in a business context. I think there's a couple of factors that make it extremely difficult. One is that this is brand new and it's a few months old. There's no previous pandemic. Well, there's been previous pandemics, but there's no previous pandemic that's got this level of data captured against it in terms of global tracking. So whilst there's a wealth of data out there, it's very difficult to understand, the context of the stats. So, for example, if there's been a mortality rate or an infection rate, is that in hospitals? Does that include, is that people that haven't gone into hospital? Is that in care homes? It's very difficult to, getting the context around the data is really what's required to make it useful. And in our analytics practice, those are some of the constant questions that have come up. Is what is the quality of the data, what is the context, and what are the how can they apply that to for example, businesses use it. It's barely been, even though it feels like a long time, it's barely been just longer than a quarter from a financial perspective. So to plot results and draw conclusions, there's obviously the pandemic, and then there's 100 other factors in the market, not least Brexit and other large changes that are impacting the landscape. So it's been very difficult to kind of pull it apart and analyze that data and make some decent assumptions. So I think that data set needs to grow. We need to improve the quality, and then we can start feeding it into some of our models. I think we also need the recovery or the tail of that, the new normal, to come out of it. Obviously, I don't think we're going to recover very quickly. A lot of institutions, with furlough, when that comes to an end, that's going to cause another dip. So to truly kind of get the impact, you need to try and work all these factors in. And from our customers' perspective, we're seeing, and from prospects, we do a lot of marketing and sales, a lot of discussions around data and analytics and app dev, and there's kind of, it's kind of polarized, because people are either putting their heads in the sand and say, we just tightening our belts, putting our heads in the sand, we're trying to wait for this to blow over, maybe make some cuts to try and optimize for expenses. And there's others that see, this is a new paradigm, a new way of working, and they're actually looking to invest. They think that if they invest and structure their business for a new normal, more online ways of working, better collaboration, and then building software that supports that. I think there's those that are trying to just ride it out, and those that see this new normal as an opportunity and trying to get ahead.
Yeah, I think so. I think from my perspective, a lot of companies had to kind of change their business models relatively quickly. So depending on the size of the organisation, I was speaking to David Germain from RSA, the CIO, the other week, and he was saying that they had a lot of I guess they had planned a lot of kind of like disaster recovery, a lot of they're strategically you're set up if there's a major issue. And there's a lot of companies that weren't. They had to adapt and move very, very quickly from a kind of digital perspective. I'm not just talking about kind of the infrastructure and the hardware of having people working at home. It's like the systems that you're using, and these guys had to upscale quite quickly. And I think all of a sudden they've gone, you know what, that wasn't too hard. Like we can actually, and like, how can we now evolve this and how can we move it forward? And it doesn't matter what kind of industry you're in. So no, I can absolutely see that. I think I know you're a busy chap. I don't want to take up any more of your time. It's fascinating listening to you talking about data. It's obviously an area that's very kind of close and passionate to our business. And yeah, you guys are, like I say, you're moving forward. You're in the right space. I can't believe how busy you are. You must be. Please enjoy your holiday. Where are you off to? Down to the coast.
Down to Plymouth and go and soak up some of the British summer, although it looks fairly miserable from a weather perspective, but we'll make the most of it. There's a lot to do down there. It's beautiful countryside, so we'll be guaranteed to have some fun.
Plenty of fish and chips.
Indeed.
All right, listen, Murray, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your holiday, well deserved, and we'll speak to you soon.
No problem. Cheers, mate.